right and left vertebral arteries joining together to make the basilar artery. We've got anterior spinal arteries here. These two little notches here coming off the vertebral arteries are posterior inferior cerebellar. You're going to see the posterior inferior cerebellar back here on the cerebellum. You've got two inferior on the cerebellum, posterior inferior cerebellar. Then we're going to have the anterior inferior cerebellar. On this particular model, it comes off the vertebral on this side and it comes off the labyrinthine on this side. So these are both anterior inferior cerebellar arteries, which are going to, again, go to supply the bottom of the cerebellum. Next branch off up here is the labyrinthine, which is going to head towards the internal auditory meatus with 7 and 8. We have these little itty-bitty pontine arteries up here. And we get to the top and we see the superior cerebellar, followed by the posterior cerebral. I'm going to go ahead and take that off here. When we're looking at the brain itself, which is always falls apart, the bottom, remember the bottom of the cerebellum is the bumpy part, the smooth part is the superior aspect. So on the bottom or inferior aspect of the cerebellum, we've got the posterior inferior cerebellar arteries and the anterior inferior cerebellar arteries. At the top of the cerebellum here, we have the superior cerebellar arteries. Superior cerebellar arteries are going to be paralleling the posterior cerebral arteries. Posterior cerebral arteries are going to come off and head back towards the occiput. Then when we get towards the top here, we can see in here, internal carotid artery coming up, and the internal carotid artery is going to be branching into middle cerebral. Middle cerebral is going to head laterally out between the temporal lobe and the frontal lobe. This is middle cerebral artery. Then we have anterior cerebral artery, which is going to head towards the midline here. Anterior cerebral artery is going to head towards the midline, loop up around the lateral ventricles, giving off all these branches. And this little itty-bitty branch here that's connecting the left anterior cerebral with the right anterior cerebral, that's the anterior communicating artery. It's very short.
Could you show that one again?
Anterior cerebral artery coming around here. This little branch that's connecting the right anterior cerebral to the left anterior cerebral is the anterior communicating.
Okay.
Good?
Meningeal.
Middle meningeal is not on here.
Was
It's-
it on the other one?
Yes.
You just didn't say it.
I said it, yeah.
You did?
Oh, I didn't say it on this one, but I said it on Terminator.
Okay.
But it can be tagged on anybody, of course.